in your documentary and in the research, because I know that you've talked to a lot of people, what were the patterns in terms of the ages, for example, that certain behaviors or certain transitions started to happen?
Yeah. So let me start with a statistic first of all. So this is from data. So from data across all of the countries I've mentioned, women turning 30 without a child at best had only a 50% chance of ever becoming a mother. So if you don't have a child by age 30, it's a toss of a coin whether you will ever become a mother. I think that's shocked really quite a lot of people. I know it has, because society really doesn't teach us that in the same way you in Poland. But I think in there are no countries where we actually, that I'm aware of at least, where we're teaching young people, men and women, that there is this thing called the biology clock, and that the clock is actually ticking probably faster in many cases than we expect. So that 50-50 statistic, more commonly when I ask people, people would think that would be somewhere between 35 or more likely 40. So it's 5 to 10 years sooner than most people are thinking. And so that's the data. In terms of the stories you refer to, for the documentary, I interviewed over 230 people across 24 countries. But whilst making the documentary and in the years since, I've been, in the great position of people opening up to me about their lives. I think because people know the topic that I'm interested in, and it's rare to find an opportunity to talk about this, people do open up. So I feel I've got a wide spectrum of experiences to call upon. And the first thing I would say is there's no single magic age, but around 30 is probably about right. I've certainly seen some younger women, 27, 28, suddenly have an urge. That's a little bit more rare than 29, 30, 31. Typically, we do see a significant urge, and also after that. So it's somewhere between, I would say, 27, 28 up to 31, 32. And it can be quite dramatic. It can be quick. There was one woman who does appear in the documentary who had no interest in children at all until she was 32. And at age 32, she couldn't think about anything else. She had to have a child. So I think this is one point to just pause on here. When you look at statistics on things like the biology clock, we're talking of averages here. That the average age for the biology clock to start falling might be whatever it is. I'm not going to say a number because I might come to that in a moment. But the point is, it's not the same for everyone. For some people, it's younger. For some people, it's a bit older. So being told, "Oh, you're fine. You can wait until you're 35 before even thinking of a child," it's not that for everybody at all. It's certainly not 35 on average, even. But as a young person, man or woman, if you're planning to have a child, you cannot make the assumption that whatever the kind of that expected range applies to you might be unlucky. And there are tests that are offered today. I'm not sure of the efficacy of them, how good they are, but they speak to the point where you can do a blood test, a pinprick test, and women can send this off and have an analysis of the number of eggs, I think. And I know women have done that in their mid-20s and been quite shocked to be told that their number of eggs is actually dwindling faster than average. So we're not all the same, is my first core point here. But beyond that, I want to come back to, there's two things to cover here. In terms of the biology side, and I interviewed 5 fertility doctors, and you see many of them in the documentary itself. They all said the same thing about there being 2 core points about the biological side, and that is the quantity of eggs that a woman produces every month, um, and the quality of those eggs. So the quantity is going down year by year. Women don't create new eggs. Women are born with all of the eggs that they will ever have throughout their life. So those are dwindling. Meanwhile, the quality of eggs decreases. That means the likelihood or ability of an egg to become a baby becomes less and less likely. So those two things are going against you really from sometime in your 20s, mid 20s, early 20s, late 20s. At some point, that is starting to go down quite significantly. But there's a third factor as well, which is the ability to carry a baby to full term. And that gets more and more difficult too, quite significantly. Certainly from mid 30s onwards, the odds of being able to carry a pregnancy 9 months decrease. So that's the biology side. But my second core point, the one I want to always come back to, is but actually that's not the biggest issue here. The biggest issue is related to having a partner who wants to have a child with you at the same time as you. And we tend to overlook that. People use terminologies. You see surveys on, when women decide to have a child, it's like going down to a store. It's like, people think of it like getting a pet. I've decided to get a cat or a dog or whatever. Having a child isn't like that. You need a partner. There needs to be two of you in this. Right? That's the ideal for the vast majority of people. And, it doesn't get easier as we get into our 30s to find partners, to find a partner who can say, right, well, even though we've adopted this lifestyle without children, right now is the right moment for us both to do this. So it just gets less and less likely that this will ever happen.